we do have like a reality, right? So on some
Yeah,
level, like whether that
yeah.
was created or it's eternal, there is reason for being, whether that be some law of physics or whatever. But
No,
there
no.
is a something,
There's
right?
not a reason. There's a function.
Right, right. But a base function that simply
There's a
is.
how, but there's not a why.
Yeah. But well, the thing I was thinking is that there's just a base something that actually is, right?
Yeah, we exist. Reality exists. Yes. Okay.
So
So what's
the what I got to is basically that just simply that's God, and I don't attach anything to God except for that. But to say
why?
that like
Why? Well, what does God mean to you in terms of like a definition?
the
What is
reason for all that is basically.
that's circular. So you got to come up with
Well, I
something
think that's
better
what
than that.
you don't think that's what God would be though, is circular?
Yeah. No, you can't say the answer is the reason. Basically, is what you just said.
Well, why not?
Because it doesn't say anything. It doesn't solve any. You're not solving the equation.
Doesn't it solve everything?
No, because there's no justification for it. It is just a blind statement.
Well,
You can't say. You just can't say that. I'm trying
I
to
would
think
say
of
it's
an
a blanket
analogy here.
statement. I would say it's a blanket statement.
No, it's not. That's not the problem with it. The problem is it doesn't tie. It's a non sequitur because the things don't tie, and that's kind of what I was trying to get to with you is why do you connect reality? What justifies you connecting reality to a God concept? Why does the fact that reality exists make you believe that there is a God?
Well, I would say that God is the reason. Well, it's circular logic again. I just think that the answer to God would be circular logic.
Yeah, and then and that's not an argument. So
So you
that's
don't
why I
think.
asked.
So you
That's
don't
why I
think
asked
there's.
you. That's why I ask you to get a little more specific on what you mean by the word God, and because we could say, I mean, most Christians doesn't have to be Christian. Most deists, let's go there, who believe in it and I'm trying to think of a different word for God, but because there's so much baggage in that word.
We're thinking of something that just simply is, whether that be a law of physics or whatever. Yeah, I could
Well,
even say that that's like the God equation.
if it just simply is, then we don't need the word God. We could just say the universe,
Oh,
right?
yeah, I would say God is, but
Well,
just the
why do you have to add the God concept? I don't see why you have to. It's like additional baggage that sort of means other things
you
also.
don't, but you would say is, and I would say like if when people talk about God, if they're looking for His name, they have Yahweh and Allah. God would simply be is
Okay,
that
here's
which
the
is.
well. That's useless. That's just a straight up assertion. Because I mean, I can understand the God concept in terms of God was a creator who intentionally made us and cares about us and those types of things. Not that I think it's justified to believe it, but I understand the concept. I'm kind of bothered when people use the word God in other ways.
Well,
I
okay,
looked it up
so
in the dictionary a few times, different dictionaries, and when you say something like God, you're referring to a supernatural element,
why is it
and
have to be
usually
supernatural?
it's a
Couldn't it just be natural?
no.
Why
It
does it have to be
couldn't
supernatural?
because then you don't need it. It's like why do we need Thor if we know how lightning works? You're just adding another element.
Well,
We
wouldn't that
already
just
have an
make lightning
explanation.
Thor though? Like,
No, no, you have no reason. You drop the extraneous because there's no reason to believe it's there because it's entirely unneeded. That is why there's such that's why there's such a kickback against evolution because evolution takes out the need for a creator. Doesn't disprove it, but it takes out the
well, I
need. We
mean,
have the explanation. You don't have to say God created evolution. It's a redundant piece of information. It's not knowledge, it's information. It's just a word that has no association. So the universe exists. It's a physical thing, right?
so
We
when like
know.
Einstein said God though, well, like because he would use God to describe like the laws
Yeah.
of physics, like what is God telling me, and the laws of physics to him were like
Let's,
God's language, but he
yeah.
used that allegorically to describe God. You don't think there's like a beautiful sort of meaning there?
I don't know. I think it's a mistake that he and several others have made all the way up to Stephen Hawking, actually, early in his writing career. In
Why do
his
you think
first
they
book.
made that mistake?
I think they grew up in a culture, particularly, let's go back a little further, like someone like Darwin, right? Who definitely grew up in a culture that believed in a God, and as did he when he was younger. And then he came up with this explanation for, how animals get to more complexity over time. And suddenly he realized that the God explanation was no longer needed. So even though he referred to it earlier in his career, and by the time you get into late in his career, you find out that they kind of turned back on that. That's maybe not, I don't remember Darwin specifically because he's still in a generation that was shunned upon for not believing. Certainly Einstein grew up Jewish and with a strong God belief around him. He definitely wrote many letters over later in his life to clarify his position, because he did use some phrases that sounded like it would support the God concept, and then he later clarified that these were kind of like you say, sort of either allegorical or sort of habits kind of thing. And Stephen Hawking did the same thing in his first book. Oh God.
So you're saying, like, if we understand it, then it's not God?
A deity has a supernatural component. If
But it
you
meant,
don't have a supernatural component, it's just nature. It's
so
just physics and chemistry.
you know how, like, a caveman, like, if I gave my cell phone to a caveman, he'd be like, whoa, this is magic, basically.
Yeah,
So,
he would believe it's something magical, but it wouldn't be magical, right? Difference between belief and
not
so
to
yeah,
us, but to him. So I'm just saying, like,
right.
we can look at that.
But again, listen to that sentence again. You're correct. He would believe it's magic, but it wouldn't be magic. He just wouldn't
Only
know
to
enough to
us.
understand it. So that doesn't mean you don't put the word God in there, right?
Well,
Because we
well,
know in the 21st century we know a lot of physics, we know a lot of stuff. It doesn't make sense. It's a non sequitur to put a God concept where it's not needed. It's just why would you put God on top of physics on top of cheesecake? I mean, you don't. These things have no relationship to each other.
so, but like, if we went to another alien planet with like cavemen type people, and we went to them, and they look at us and they're like, whoa, you're God. We would know what we are, but to that caveman, we would be God. And so if
Right.
that caveman says, you're God, well, we went through all of this knowledge learning what really God meant, especially to that caveman. So now that we have that understanding, we now know what the caveman is referring to when the caveman says God. It's sort of
Yes.
the
Yeah.
infinite,
Okay.
scalable.
Okay. But you and I are in the 21st century, right? And we've
Mhm.
had some science education. I don't know how much you've had, but you've had certainly, in middle school you get bits of all the
I've got a
sciences.
bachelor's degree, but it's in psychology.
Oh, but still, I mean, that means you've had what 2 years of science in high school, and then several years of science before that, into various degrees, like I say, in middle school especially. So just the concepts of physics and chemistry and biology, and all this stuff is functional working of nature. We call it nature. We don't call it God, because God implies
You don't think nature is God, though?
no, no. I think it is the
Well,
word
it
God.
isn't. Okay, what is God, though? Okay, so
Okay, the word God. First off, the word God implies a mind, an independent mind, right?
mm,
It implies a creator with a mind with an intention.
mhm.
There is no intention in physics. So to say that all of the universe is God is just wrong.
Well, isn't there
Is
kind of our intention? Not necessarily. We don't really know that there's like intention to physics itself, but like when we go to understand it, our intention is to understand it.
Our intention is to understand it. Doesn't mean it has intention. If you put sodium and chloride together, they will come together and form
Does it need
sodium
that though?
chloride. If you listen, if you put sodium and chloride together and they're close enough in solution, they will come together to form sodium chloride. They do that because of electromagnetic attraction, laws of physics. There's no intention, there's no mind, there's no God involved.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
So if we came across like a super advanced alien and we look at them, what are they to us then? They are just what, super advanced technology?
Yeah, that would be the first. Yeah,
So if you
I
take
mean,
that super
look
advanced
at
technology into infinity, is that God?
no, because I think that's jumping too far. I mean, you watch
Then
Star Trek, right? You've watched some Star Trek.
yeah, I'll
Right.
tell
So,
you.
like the Q character, for example, is a good, pretty close analogy to what you're describing, right? Where it's like an alien, if you will. It's a being that exists in the universe that is so powerful that it looks godlike to us, right?
Mhm.
At least in the stories, they've told us that's not God. It's just a powerful something that they got a little vague on, so that the concept doesn't fall apart. So yeah, I mean, there would certainly be some people who go to the God concept because that's what's in their cultural mind, but
I'll
it
say
doesn't
I'm being
mean.
slightly facetious. I like it because it helps me describe that which like is kind of
Yeah.
impossible to know.
And
Um,
I think you're misleading yourself. Then that's the problem with it, because you're adding things that shouldn't be added to the soup. You're
well,
adding things that don't belong there.
what have I
So
added?
you've added intention, you've added supernatural,
Well, I wouldn't
all the
necessarily
all.
add those things. I don't think I've added those things.
Well, I mean, you have to. It depends on how you are defining God. So, and which religion you're using and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
but I see no reason to fuzz the understanding by adding the God concept to physics. It's like we know how the electrons have a negative charge and then protons have a positive charge. We don't need to say God is a piece of every proton on top of that information.
Oh, I'm saying necessarily like the science that we don't know but will in a million years. If let's say we make it a million years, God would be that which we'll know in a million years, but we
No,
can't understand that now, so I just say that's God.
I again, it doesn't work for me. That would just be more knowledge. I mean, compare us to what we knew 1,000 years ago. We are not gods now. What we know now that we didn't know 5,000 years ago is not God. That knowledge, that collection of knowledge that we can put in a hard drive or 10
Yeah.
hard drives, whatever, that is not God. That is just knowledge that we are now aware of. And there is no God that came along. It's just like now we have more understanding, and in the future they'll have that much more again. There's no God involved here.
I don't necessarily want you to believe what I believe. That's not like a
Yeah.
prerequisite for me. Like what I love about other people is that they believe with their own things. That's what I think gives us real
Yeah.
diversity.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to get to at least to the point of understanding what I'm saying. Because
Yeah.
you're right. I mean, we're and meet you. So I hear you, but I don't get you in terms of that
Yeah.
justification. So, but that's okay. And sometimes that's all we can do is understand each other and then just say that was interesting and walk away. So.